Evening, everyone, and welcome to a new chapter of The Journey. I'm Joey Medea, and I'm a storyteller and I'm a creative. And I've been a storyteller and a creative since I was 8 years old. So I've been doing this for a little while. I'm really glad to have you here. Um, Same kind of format, different focus. It was time for that. And so here we go. It's a very simple opening, straightforward, but with music by a very dear friend of mine, Knight Berman Jr., who also goes by the Marble T. And we wrote a play together. We've written a lot of plays together, and Knight's going to be on the show in August. I'll be really excited for you to for you to hear all the stuff that we've done, all the musicals we've written, and he scored short films for me and all that kind of thing. But this is from a show called How All This Bullying Began. So this is from the title number, and here's the intro. So welcome to the show. All right. So it's that quick. It's like 11 seconds. Usually we have like a 90-minute intro and all kinds of things. But welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Every day is a story all its own podcast. I make stuff up. And I've been doing that since I was a little kid, and I'm sure I'll do it till I pass on. But anyway, tonight is in response to the tremendous response of a blog article that I wrote. No, I wrote the first version of this in 2021, and it was called The Role of Creatives in Unprecedented Times. And I was asked to write this by the blog editor at the time of Stage 32 magazine and or Stage 32 online networking site. Sorry, a little nervous tonight. Anytime you launch something new, you get a little nervous. It's probably a good thing. A little bit of pre-show butterflies or during show butterflies. But anyway, Taylor Baker asked me to write an essay. It was very well received then, and with my new, I'll put the link up at the end of the show for anybody who wants to have it. But my new blog is joeymedeastoryteller.blogspot.com, which is Blogger or Blogspot. One bought the other, and it goes by both names. So I'm here to talk about this role of creatives, but I'm also going to take the hour tonight to set up this new show because I have so many great guests all the way through the middle of August, and interspersed with the guests here and there, I'm going to do what I call creative communications. So how to do work for hire, how to find your vision and voice, different things that I've done. When I started the YouTube channel, Every Day is a Story All Its Own, back in 2018, that was the mission, to celebrate story, to teach people how to tell stories. And that's what I'm going to continue to do now. The guests are really going to be great actors and filmmakers, composers, all kinds of people who have a vision for the world, who are telling a brand new story on a very large level. Next week, so I don't forget about it, at the end of the show, my guest is going to be George Uhas, who wrote this book, Righteous Allegiance. It's about a white Christian nationalist terror group that wreaks havoc in this town, and it's about the people in the town. So it's very Stephen King in that way, in the detail of the people and their motivations. It's about the intelligence services, about the military, and it's also sprinkled in with a lot of indigenous ritual, indigenous history and practice and culture, and has a little bit of magical realism in it as well, which is exciting. So George wrote a children's book. I had him on years ago. It was a wonderful book, also a lot of magical realism. And so I'm excited to have him back. So let's jump right into this. I see that I have people in the chat room, so I don't want to. Hello, everyone. Hello, Charles. Hello, Lori. Hello, Amy. Hello, Ron. Tanya should be here in a little bit. Thanks all for joining me. Oh, great. My friend Lori, happy retirement to Lori. And Tanya and I, for a gift, we got her a journal to chronicle this new chapter in her life, a new story that she's telling. Every day is a story all its own, but we have these big, you could call them a new part or a new section to the story. So all best wishes. They're gonna be, seeing the country and doing all kinds of cool stuff. So that's gonna be wonderful. So I'm going to jump in this. I'm going to go fairly quick, but it is foundational to what's going to come because there are certain keywords, there are certain themes that are very much part and parcel of what I do. And so I'm going to introduce you to some of those. Those of you who know my work as a storyteller, story analyst, all of that kind of thing may be familiar with this. But anyway, it all centers for me on the 3-act model and the hero's journey. Of course, the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell, which is really a 3-act model in itself. It is separation. After you answer the call to adventure, you leave the ordinary world and you go into the non-ordinary world where you're going to be challenged. When Dorothy wakes up in Oz, that's the non-ordinary world. Now, Dorothy doesn't have an opportunity to answer the call of adventure. It's forced on her. But someone like Frodo, someone like Luke Skywalker, they very much answer the call of adventure. Alice in Wonderland, going down the rabbit hole, is very much going into that world where you are initiated. Hey, that's why we tell stories. That's why they have value, because the hero, the lead character, undergoes some kind of change, some kind of initiation. And really think about it. We're going through that all the time. If you're religious, especially Catholic, like I was raised, you make the sacraments, as we say, which is nothing but initiations, rituals and initiations. So anyway, and then there's the return. You have to come back. You've got a bunch of knowledge. You need to share it. It's your obligation. What have you learned? How could you mentor others? And we'll talk about all that. And it's all very beautiful. I think some people misunderstand and they think that the hero's journey is a once and done, and it isn't. Numerous. I've probably taken hundreds of heroes' journeys in my life. The other is the 3-act model, which is simple as this. I call it the 3 threes of good storytelling. But every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. This goes all the way back to Aristotle, which means it goes all the way back to the beginning. A beginning, a middle, and end. Well, what the heck happens in the beginning? We meet the characters, the who. We see where the setting is, the place and location, place. I'll do an episode on this probably in the fall, is so important. I like to move every so often. Tanya and I are going to move back to West Virginia in September. And that place works on me in a much different way than, say, the beach in North Carolina or the desert in Arizona or the forest in Maine or the Jersey Shore. It operates in a different way on you. So place is very important. And then the third thing that you set up in the beginning, of course, is the what, the main problem. And then in the middle, that problem gets worked on. And the harder and more complex it is, the more obstacles, the higher the stakes, the more the character is pushed to change. So in a spiritual way, we say that the universe nudges, and then it pushes, and then it pushes, and then it shoves. So you want your character shoved, and we'll talk about that, of course, as we go on. This is just sort of an overview course. But if you're not a creative, you can still apply this in your life very much. Very good friend of mine just wrote to me and said, "Oh, XYZ happened, and now I have to take these weeks off, and I have to heal this broken thing, and I have to do these things." And it was probably for the best. And I said, yeah, you missed the push, the nudge, and then you got shoved. So there you go. Hey, Joe, nice to see you. So here we go. So that's kind of foundational. So you'll hear me talk about that. You'll hear me talk about it with guests. You'll hear me talk about it all the time. But it's awesome. And Joe Campbell, of course, who's the great mentor that I never met. So since 9/11, so we're going 2001 here. So we're really talking a generation. And I know, having 2 sons who are millennials, that everything changed for them. And they talk about that all the time. They grew up in a world where there was war, no peace, heavy tech. So many things had changed during that generation. So it's an almost generation that's gone by, a quarter of a century since that day. The Act One circumstances then were initiated. They unfolded in the same way that I believe when JFK was assassinated. That was the end of Camelot. We moved into another era, another time, and this happens every so often. As I'm studying temporal astrology, as I call it, we see these patterns go and go. So these past 25 years, we've been in Act One. We know what the problem is. It's a very unsettled world, a world full of terrorism, more and more binary, more duality, which I talk about in my book Every Day is a Story all its own. Binary, duality. I like triad. I like entering a third thing that takes two supposed opposites and turns them into something amazing, because this us and them and othering and your team and my team does not help. And it's not the way to tell a story. That's a way to be pedantic and didactic. And that doesn't work for storytelling. So I'll talk about that more as we go. But it led us into this Act Two middle. When I first wrote this essay, we were in the middle of Act Two. Now, Act Two is very big. It tends to be twice as long as either Act One or Act Three. So you need something new in the middle. That's how instinctive, that's how universal, this is how spiritually energetic this is, that it's macro and micro all the time, as above, so below, that kind of thing. We had the pandemic. I think I'm allowed to say that word. And as the pandemic went on, all kinds of new characters came into our life, epidemiologists, and it was the rise of certain podcasters, controversial podcasters. All this kind of stuff happened. We sort of need that to keep Act Two going. And the fact of the matter is that as we're pushing towards a climax in Act Three, we don't know what that's going to be. We are deep into the second act now. The hero is taking a hit. The villain is winning. But think about it. In stories, I know Tanya, she gets so infuriated. She invests so much that when the villain is winning, she gets so upset. But I say, babe, the Act Three is coming. The climax is coming. When the hero operates, they are the primary actor. They are no longer acted on. They take a stand. Frodo's got to go to Doom. Luke's got to face Vader, all of that kind of stuff. If you play video games, what do they call I forget what they call the main monster, the boss. You gotta fight the boss. You gotta fight the boss, and you're the only one. You can't stand there, watch while someone else fights the boss. It's besides the point. It's useless, and it's not the way that it works. So what it does is it infuses an energy. So we had the pandemic sort of infuse this energy, although everything sort of ground to a halt. I think everybody had to check their morals, check their inner compass, figure out where they were coming from. In a way, this is a good thing, because what Act Three looks like is going to be immensely important. Now the stakes have been raised, no matter what side you're on, no matter where you are. The stakes are raised for everyone. They manifest differently, of course, because of your worldview, all that kind of stuff. That's what makes a character unique. That's what gives you your vision and what gives you your voice as a person, as an artist, as a creative. So there you go. So will our hero survive? Who is the hero? I don't know. I watched an interesting documentary with Tanya. We've done a lot of crying lately. We watched the Val Kilmer documentary. And that was very heartbreaking. And then similar in a lot of ways, Path from Juilliard, working with actors who were already established and having to prove yourself, was the Chris Reeves story. Super with a slash that's actually a piece of kryptonite man. It's beautifully, beautifully done. His children are heavily involved. But he said something really interesting, and I think it's true. America has a shortage of heroes. So we need to be our own hero. We need to be the hero of our own story. That's the best advice that I can give everyone. There's only so much that you can control out there what's going on macro, but you can control every moment, everything, how you react to things. Actors either act or they react. Bad actors react, good actors act. Good writers create action on the stage, not reaction. Reaction knocks you back on your heels, it puts you off balance, takes you out of the game sometimes. It's like being knocked down during a prize fight. So act three to me seems very far away. We're gonna have some stops, we're gonna have some scenes, certain things that are gonna dictate things. Um, my okay, sorry, never mind. Chris, she was talking to our good friend Joe, who is indeed Joe. But anyway, sorry. Sorry about that. So for the past 25 years, um, in part driven by social media, which I have to use. And as creators, we have to use it. And I will try to help creatives during the work for hire, during the networking, and showing up episodes that I do the creative conversations. Um, we will we will talk more about that. The odds seem to be with the villains now, with the black hats, and you know, from the other brands that I have worked on and the other work that I have done, which is all of a piece as far as I'm concerned. Story is story. um yeah, that's the way it seems to be. But so we have to keep showing up is the point. So past 25 years, like I said, this generational kind of thing, crisis from increasing scarcity of resources, which is manufactured. Yes, there's over 8 billion people on the planet, and that is a lot for Mother Earth to maintain as systems engineers talk about it. That is a lot. The earth is overburdened, but we could do better. We're super, super smart as humanity and innovative. Um, so there's that, and that's the global elite. So you all know from from Sinister Mysteries and certain episodes of Into the Outer Realms, my pathways, parallels, and patterns work. Bernie Sanders said this. This is their interesting statistics. The three richest billionaires, right, which is Elon Musk, which is Mark Zuckerberg, and is Jeff Bezos. They have as much wealth as the next hundred and as the lower 175 million people. This is a problem. This is a problem. I hope that everybody would agree that this is a problem. This is less than ideal. The top three sort of mega investment corporations, BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard, they are majority shareholders in 85% of our corporations. Also, kind of problematic. We used to have this thing like usury, which would keep credit cards from being 20% or even 15%. That went away. We used to have antitrust things where that kind of thing didn't happen. That's kind of gone away. That has changed the story. And as you're going to see tonight, these folks are great at story, which means we have to be great at story. This is where this transcends creative and applies to everyone. I've been saying this since 9/11. I feel like confrontation is the new communication. Social media seems to reward that, to confront instead of communicate. No good. Without communication, there's no communion. There's no community if everyone is in confrontation all the time. And this is why I think dualities and binaries do not serve us as a society, as people, as a race, as a collective. And also because of that, there is the death of complexity. So I've sort of been wearing an invisible black armband for complexity. If you don't bleed it down to us and them, good, bad, light, dark, red, blue, whatever it is, people just don't want to talk about it. And that's a problem because the great richness of life is the complexity of life. It's complexity of the hero's journey. Referring back to that, initiation is a complicated thing. Hey, Craig, glad you could join in. Hi, Jay. How are you? Um, Uh, so I talked about all this kind of stuff. But this is not a story. Don't get me wrong. This is not a story of hopelessness and defeat. I don't do hopelessness and defeat. I wouldn't waste your time if I was going to say, that's it. Put your head between your legs and kiss your butt goodbye. No, 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 no. This is a story where storytellers are essential. And I want everyone to be a storyteller, everyone to realize that every day is a story and you can change your story every single day. Introduce new characters, go to a new place, um, address new problems, push yourself, challenge yourself to address new problems, look at new ways to solve your existing problems, because if they continue to exist day after day, you're not solving them as best you can. So you need to look at new. I often, when I train actors and they're just doing the same thing over and over, no matter how much direction you give them, no matter how their partner is changing what they do, what Sanford Meisner called the pinch and the ouch. So if you want a small ouch, you give a small pinch. If you want a big ouch, you give a big pinch. Um, if nothing's going, I say it's like one of those wind up things that just keeps hitting the wall over and over again. You want one that hits the wall, turns around, changes direction, and goes till it hits another wall, turns around, and change direction. That's what every day is a story all its own means to me. So what happens with all of that? Storytellers are great because problems are just stories awaiting our solutions. We are problem solvers. We are engineers. So many really good storytellers are polymaths, or a lot of people refer to me as a Renaissance man. Some other people will say too, jack of all trades, master of none. But we need a transdisciplinary approach. That's really at the core of my book here. Complex problems need a lot of different approaches. You need a lot of tools in your toolbox to work on these kinds of things. So obstacles, struggles, strength, and character, right? Whatever doesn't kill us makes us stronger, as the old saying goes. That's a good thing. Hope brings light out of darkness. It lights a candle in the darkness, and then you can lead the way. My t-shirt that Tanya made for me is I make stuff up. A lot of creatives will say, I get paid to tell lies. I think that that's a problem. David Mamet talks about a story being the move from the lie to the truth. We have to engage with the lie, we have to unpack it, and we need to find the truth. Light the candle in the darkness is what we do, because we decide the ending. That is the beauty. That's why I became a storyteller. As a child, I felt like I was living in a very chaotic world, unsure about things all the time, how things were going to turn out, how people were going to be, so on and so forth. A lot of that was me. A lot of it wasn't. Some of it was the quirky workings of my mind. Some of it wasn't. But we decide the ending. We are the architects of our own ending. Don't ever forget that. Every day is a story. It's a chance to architect an ending for yourself that you want, that's not being thrust upon you. See, I told you this wasn't about hopelessness and defeat. Not at all. And this is how we can live through this geopolitical, socio-cultural shakeup, which is accelerated. It's crazy. It's hard to process. Some of that is by design, which I'll talk about, and get back to communion, wholeness, get back to community. And that's through communication and not confrontation. Let's see here. This is what creatives do all day, every day, as actors, as writers, directors, composers, editors, producers. And that's why I want you to meet a whole array of interesting people who are going to be guests on this program, what I'm going to call creative conversations. So this isn't an interview, but it's a shop talk discussion where and I tend to be pretty good at this, which is neat, to really get them to bring out their passion, their excitement about what they do day in and day out, which isn't always easy. this is really times of dizzying change, and this is what Sinister Mysteries was all about. These provocateurs and disruptors, to a large point, applying tech, employing AI, and making everything rapid. People's attention spans are shorter. Even TV seasons are getting shorter. Part of that is financial, and things that went badly. The creatives out there will know what I'm talking about. Things that went badly or less than ideally, the last writers and actor strikes, which we're really starting to see the effects of those now. I've beaten this to death, so I'm just going to go real quick, but I want to say it. It is a misnomer to me, artificial intelligence. These are very fast databases filled with partially stolen data. We know that the proof is out there. Atlantic wrote an article with a link to LibGen, which is where Meta trained their AI. I know many publishers and writers whose books are on that list. There, like I said, there are lawsuits. In many cases, AI has proven to be biased, especially socioculturally. But also too, and given to stereotypes, but also is using a vast amount of water and electricity. I've been reading these articles lately that every time you go into Chat GPT, the use of electric, and so it's already putting a bit of a strain, which is getting us away from more natural solutions, solar and things like that, and pushing us backwards as far as energy consumption. And these big data centers that they're talking about with the Stargate project, a $500 billion project to build all these big data processing centers to run these giant databases, which are so suspect to begin with. Anyway, the provocateurs and the disruptors are loving this stuff. It's a means to control. It's a means to overwhelm. To me, it's a psychological blitzkrieg. It causes immense amount of cognitive dissonance. And when you're trying to track 5 or 6 executive orders or things that are happening in 8 or 10 places across the globe, the mind can't handle it, and it starts to shut down, or it starts to get very reductionist, and you get back to us and them. You get back to the othering, yelling and screaming. So it's designed to get you to give up. So you got to take it by small pieces. You got to break down the stories and analyze them. Because another big part of all of this, and not giving in to the cognitive dissonance, not giving in to giving up, not giving in to just yelling and screaming and calling that activism, is that the hero never does give up as much as they want to. And we want our audience to see the hero almost give up. We want to see Rocky have a really hard time getting up from that bench. We want to see Frodo in tears at Mount Doom, and Sam is trying to help him. Sorry, I get worked up. I get emotional. But anyway, at the edge of Mount Doom, if he was just like, yeah, I got this. It's cool, bros. I'm good. And he goes right up the mountain, plinks in the ring, doesn't try to hold on to it. It's not affecting him. We don't have a story. And that's a damn classic story because of that struggle. If Hamlet just shows up, says, oh, what? My stepmom killed my dad. Sorry, plot spoilers. And simply kills the king and banishes his mother, and it's done. We don't have a play. We have a scene. That's all we have. We have a scene. That's it. It's that struggle. What do I do? Do I suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune? I struggle. I am in an unfamiliar place, because there's only 2 stories, folks. There are only 2 stories. Boy meets girl, or however you want to put it, person meets person. Or stranger in a strange land. And I think if you've ever fallen in love, you know that that is definitely stranger in a strange land. So that might be the story. When Frodo goes to that world and leaves the comfort of the Shire, that's why that's such a big deal. Crossing that threshold, that is what stretches us. So if we're safe all the time, we don't grow. And that stories help us grow. They're the water that help, and sunshine that help us grow. We have a lot of questions right now. Are these changes permanent that we're witnessing? Are they overcorrections? Because there's a lot of overcorrections from a lot of different places. Will they self-adjust organically, right? Are they a rubber band that stretch and so it's going to go back? That snap can hurt a lot of people. That can leave a big welt. So can we release that pressure gently and get it back to a place that everyone can agree on? Is this merely a storm or a set of astrological alignments that we just need to wait out, to just be passive, just be patient? That doesn't really work either. Can you imagine if Frodo said, well, listen, I'm sure this is going to get sorted and there are other people who can do this. So I'm just going to sit here in the Shire and smoke a pipe and hopefully it all works out. So I don't think that's it. So anytime that there's change and we're undergoing obviously rapid change, and a lot of us would agree that it's much needed change. This is really hard. Change is super hard. We need new narratives. We need new stories. I think each of us needs to find a new way to tell our story. Charles, bravo. That is awesome. Fiction is often more true than history. Yeah, and it has to make sense, which history or fact doesn't, as David Lynch most famously said. So it's harder, but it's also more structured and it's more engineered. And that's where our work comes in as craft, because the bigger the obstacles, the bigger the change and the greater the need for new stories. So this is very cyclical. It's all so cyclical. When the A bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, for instance, the trauma was outsized. Nobody had experienced this before. America did not know what these bombs were going to do because they had never been dropped under these conditions before. And so a new art form was created, Buto, and it's beautiful and it's heartbreaking. And in its earliest days, it involved blood and different kinds of things, but it is an expression of trying to express something that is inexpressible. And it's not that it succeeds in being expressed. Tanya and I, when we had our art center in West Virginia, our arts and education center, we had a man come in who danced the Japanese tsunami that had happened during that time. He danced it. It didn't solve it. It didn't prevent the next tsunami, but it was a physical expression of it. I think of jazz, blues, rap, which are born from the deep wells of experiences like slavery, like racism. Racism does still exist in this country. There are people that will tell you that we've moved beyond it and it doesn't exist anymore. And the last 4 years especially have proved that it very much does. So the art, the expression of that is enduring. It's beautiful. It's really hard to be passive. And that's another thing too. We don't want our audiences passive. TV with those, especially with the old tubes, the boob tube would put people in a trance. The way it would subtly pulse. That is not the idea to be. And Bertolt Brecht talked about that. With his theater. I will have to talk about that another time. Thank you, Mark. I'm glad you're enjoying the discussion, more like a monologue. But anyway, these really are life-changing times, and this is when storytellers shine. This goes back to the Greeks and the Romans and the most foundational plays, the Senecas and the Aristotles and the Socrates and all of that kind of stuff, and the idea of catharsis. You watch it and experience it so you don't have to experience it yourself. That's real tricky to pull off. Or poets that I love, William Blake and Pablo Neruda. Pablo Neruda, when the fascists came in to take over, to arrest him because he was a poet who was telling a different story, he said there's nothing dangerous here except poetry. And that's why they arrested him. That's why they outlawed his poetry. For years. Walt Whitman, beautiful Walt Whitman, Leaves of Grass, William Carlos Williams, Allen Ginsberg, who I toured as, and I was honored to do so. They were writing in times of crisis, in a tumultuous world of rapid, frightening change. So we can learn from them. We can learn from their writing, from their plays, from their stories, from their novels. and have a catharsis of our own, but learn from it and then tell our own stories. Be a beacon. Creatives will be immensely important in what comes next. So 15 months ago, when my book came out, and it came out as an Amazon bestseller in a bunch of different categories in the theater, it was really nice to see this book up with books that I talk about in the book, in the list of what was selling at the time, which was really, really kind of cool. I expressed some concern about how it would be received to one of my mentors, William Douglas Horton, who was on the show with Tanya and I many, many years ago. William has fused the I Ching with Toltec shamanism, comes from a very long line of masters in both those areas. And he said, Joey, you are not writing for the crisis, you are writing for the aftermath. So I think that's what we're doing now. Things are moving so fast, there's so much change. No one's really stopping to listen to storytellers, but they will in the aftermath, because you go, what comes next? We are in a new place here, which is important. So this podcast that I'm doing is part of my preparation for the aftermath. Hopefully it will help some of the audience prepare for the aftermath. It will be a journey that I can take with my guests while we're preparing for the aftermath. Because creatives are trained to be visionaries. It's I wrote a whole book about the 5 traits of a successful director, and one of them is being a visionary, being able to see that. And story is the most effective way to make a case for positive change, because like I said, it's not dogmatic, it's not pedantic, it's not saying this is how it is because I say so. That's bad parenting, that's bad teaching, that's just bad being pedantic. Because I said so, don't ask me, I'm in a position of authority, I say so, therefore you do. Not good. I learned that working with teenagers and really young audiences. You just have to show them the full scope of the story. And I had to fight people tooth and nail. I had to fight school administrators and funders, and because there are some ugly things that you have to show. You have to show behaviors that they're like, we can't show them those behaviors. Those are behaviors we don't want them to do. Okay, let's show them the behaviors, and let's show them the consequences of those behaviors, all the positive consequences, because they're smart and they will get it. And that has always been, hey, Shadow, thank you so much. I'm so glad you're here, brother. Shadow is a storyteller in every sense of the word that I'm talking about today. A true creative, a producer, a writer, a cinematographer, an amazing man who's producing my Three Gothic Doctors musical. And we met during the pandemic. He came to me and said, this sounds like a cool idea. And my life as a creative has been a lot better with him in it. And I'm still learning so much all the time. And we don't always agree. But we do it respectfully and we learn. And I think our perspectives each broaden out a little because of those engagements. That's what we can do here. Theme. How do you keep from being pedantic? How do you keep from being didactic? Theme never supersedes character or story. If you talk to a creative and they say, my story has such a good message, I don't want the characters too complicated, it gets in the way of the message. I don't want the plot too complicated, it gets away of the message. Run away. This is no good. People who are obsessed with message, I'll tell you the kind of people who are obsessed with message, but it makes audiences turn away unless you get really insidious, right? I did an episode called not too long ago, called The Science of Story. And you really got to watch that idea of the message, because who was behind marketing and public relations? Edward Bernays, the nephew of Sigmund Freud. That tells you all you really want to know. Shadow, I don't think very generous at all. I think totally well-deserved, brother. I love you. I got to train advocates. This was because of the social justice work we did, the social consciousness work that we did with our theater company and our art center. I got to train advocates for social change who would then have to make presentations, make elevator pitches. Congress people, legislators are very busy people. You catch them in the elevator. We all know the story, the elevator pitch, same thing with Hollywood executives and all of this. You do not have time in that 30-second or 45-second or 1 minute elevator ride to tell them all the plot points, to introduce them to all the characters. You don't have time. Tell them a story. If this legislation doesn't go through, here's what's going to continue to happen. I know a person whose child was subjected to this. They're now homeless and thinking about ending their lives. That is a powerful story. It is just truth. That's why I say we don't lie for a living, even though we make stuff up. We make stuff up to try to make it clean and compact, heightened, compressed, to make the point, to resonate with you all, the audience. So you need a well-rounded story. That's what I teach. That's what I look for as a script analyst. That's what I do as a writer. A well-rounded story. Conflicting opinions between characters are welcome. And that's how, again, you have a whole array of characters. I'll do one on character and theme and plot and all that kind of thing. Thanks to the great director and artistic director, Harold Clurman, that every single character should represent an aspect of the theme, because you're going to resonate with those people. Because the true heroes that are in the middle of that spectrum, we want to be, we see ourselves with them. It's the people on the extreme. So I always think about Star Wars, right? There are no evil emperors. There are no evil emperors to the level of that emperor. It is a total exaggeration. You get towards Darth Vader, yeah. You start to get to some of the Sith Lords, yeah. You start to get to some of the rebel command. I mean, some of the Empire commanders, hell yeah. Same thing with Yoda. Yoda is ideal. There are no Yodas walking around. It's simply an ideal. It's a goalpost, and on the other end, it's massive. It's Gollum. There aren't too many Gollums walking around. But we can see what happens when the greed, when the connectedness to things gets too much first. There you go. So message is data. Right. And Brene Brown, who I love so much, who taught me all about authenticity. Brene Brown says that story is data with a soul. That's what we want. It's the data. The data has to be in there. When I wrote my social justice plays on a number of topics, let's just say, to keep moving, I did lots and lots of research. The data was the core. It was the spine, is what held it together. And you need that when you're going after grants, when you're trying to get in schools, when you're dealing with school psychologists, when you're dealing with subjects that are going to affect kids deeply, and then they go home and they're affected. And you have to have people in place who can answer parents' questions, administrators' questions, teachers' questions. That becomes really important. You know who concentrates on message? I promised that I would tell you, and you probably know it. Advertisers, politicians, social media, in a lot of ways, pushes forth messages, and then they test the strength of those messages. And we're all aware of how we've all seen Zuckerberg and so on and so forth testifying on Capitol Hill about their little experiments that they play with us. The 24-hour news cycle often is very message focused because message garners ratings, because there is so much of this others and us and them. But message gives you only a single aspect of the story. And I already talked about the need for a well-rounded story, so we're going good. This is the importance of complexity. It is messy. Being human is incredibly, incredibly messy. Give it to me any day of the week. Don't take that away from me. And I don't want to take that away from you. I don't want to take away your complexity. I don't want to bleed you down to a stereotype. I don't want to do that. So we talked about it, and I'll do a show on this probably in the fall. Every character illuminates aspects of the theme or the core of the story. And how do they do this? Through their life experiences, by telling their story every day. That is their story. I love actors and writers who say, I don't think of my characters in terms of good and evil. I just think of them as characters who have wants and needs. The more desperate your wants and needs, right? That's the brilliance of Breaking Bad. um Vince Gilligan's amazing series, that when your wants and needs are so out of reach, you will go places. If they're really important to you, you will go to places that you wouldn't normally do. That's at the core of Glengarry Glenn Ross and the break-in of The Office. Being threatened with your job will make you do things. Not having the money to save someone's life, right, or to allow them, to help them to do something life changing, right? Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino. So brilliant. He cared so much that he would do something. That is very compelling. We understand that. And that's how all of this works. And that is really the recipe for ending others. That's the recipe to end us and them, to see that person's point of view, to not say, I see where you are, I see what you stand for, I see what you're doing, and I disagree with it. To stop for a second and say, how did you get where you are? And maybe you'll allow me to tell you how I got where I am, and we can start to have a conversation that's going to be complex, that is going to be really difficult, but it is going to be so value. And at least we're talking, and we're not punching each other in the face or screaming or yelling at each other through these boxes that we carry around everywhere 24/7. As my pirate character Angus Quill McGregor says, ask for more democracy in your democracy. um and that's the point. We need more democracy, true democracy in our democracy. What is Congress lacking that I wish my children could see an example of, that I saw when I was a kid, is people coming across the aisle literally to compromise. Politics is compromise. Nobody wants to compromise anymore. Everybody wants to hold their position, and that's what you're judged as a politician. Think about it. The politicians in Congress, they are judged, they are known by their steadfast position, not for their ability to compromise. None of them, for that reason, are statespeople. What used to be called statesmen, right? They're not that. A statesman understands the art of compromise. Creatives have the tools and they have the insights to lead. A lot of people laugh at that, oh, you're a silly little person, what are you going to do when you grow up, right? 56-year-old man who's actually made quite a bit of money doing what I do as a creative over the years, and they say, what are you going to do when you grow up? But we need to take that. We need to lead, but there's a caveat. It's a really interesting thing, and I realized the other day, although I knew it intuitively, having raised 3 children and mentored others, and some children who see me as a father figure, for which I'm very grateful, and they're adults now with kids of their own, is I think of Peter Brook, the great director, theater philosopher, who said that a director is a guide to a place we have never been. Man, that's parenthood. That is parenthood, if ever it was. And when we start a play and we have the words of the playwright, and we have a whole creative team who are going to costume it, who are going to light it, who are going to make the tech run, who are going to do the costumes, who are going to build the sets. Everybody has their unique opinion. And then the actors too, we want them to bring something genuine. That's why we can watch 10 or 12 different actors play Sherlock Holmes. And it's amazing because they're all different. We don't want them to be the same. Otherwise, don't waste our time. We'd never have to revive a movie, or we'd never have to revive a play ever. Once and done, and it would be over if it looks exactly like. I don't like any music covers that sound exactly like the original. I want something innovative. Now, I might not always agree with the innovation, but I would rather disagree with your new interpretation of the piece than hearing something just pushed out over and over and over again. So a lot of what we do as creatives comes down to the pitch. It comes down to that tiny little opportunity to tell the story, to tell your story. Again, you can't tell it for beat and beat. If you follow the rules as a starting out or a not incredibly established screenwriter, it's 120 pages. That's what it is. These mega epic things that are 240 pages, 200 pages, that comes much later after a lot of trust has been built. And as Kevin Costner learned over and over again, that trust can be easily diminished. Um, so, the pitch, practice the pitch, but everything is a pitch. You want a promotion at work, that's a pitch. You want to get the people around you to do what you think is best, not what you want, but what you truly think is best. I was having a trouble for a while establishing my theater company in West Virginia. I was really frustrated, and I was talking to a fellow artistic director that had hired me to do some acting, and I said, "Geez, I can't get everybody to row in the same direction." And she said, "Joey, you got to get them all in the boat first." That's the pitch. The pitch is getting them in the boat. Once you're all in the boat, then you can be the guide, or you'll hand the reins to the director. You know, this is heavy shop talk here, but for you, you make the pitch. You're going to be the leader. You get everybody in the boat, and you're going to a destination that you don't know. In reading some books now about the American Revolution, George Washington was far from perfect, but man, that dude could get people in the boat. Teddy Roosevelt was an interesting man in that kind of way, could get people in the boat, then the rowing, then the nautical skills, the being at sea. Oh God, the ocean is so big and my boat is so tiny. Please look after me. That's when that comes in. And that keeps you humble. That keeps you humble. So keep in mind that leaders in multiple sectors, politicians, corporations, they surround themselves with skilled storytellers. I've been telling people this forever. I disagree with speechwriters. I don't think a politician, especially a high-level politician, should have a speechwriter. And we found out something very, very interesting about Christopher Reeve. After his accident, confined to a wheelchair, unable to breathe on his own, no feeling from his neck down, they asked him, as he was starting to become an advocate for people with these kinds of disabilities, they asked him to appear at the Oscars. And he had a lot of friends who were high level politicians because Steve was always an advocate for environmental causes prior to his accident. And he turned it down. He thought it was an abhorrent idea. I can speak my own words. I can tell my own story. Thank you very much. And I'm getting sorry. You on this show, inevitably, I'm gonna get choked up. If it's not your cup of tea, there's lots of other things to watch and engage with. But anyway, the pitch does not go scene by scene. And practice it. Get as good as these guys, because here's the list that I came up with. These guys who are telling the stories, guys and gals who are telling these stories on behalf of corporations, on behalf of different religions, on behalf of politicians, especially speech writers, public relations agents, ad agencies, spin doctors, campaign strategists, media spokespeople, all highly trained in telling the story. I want to know what you stand for, person who these people are writing for you. What if your teleprompter breaks, can you put a sentence together? And folks, think about that, because teleprompters fail all the time. Pay attention to that. You can see who has a brain in their head and who does not when a teleprompter malfunctions. Because they're just pushing this stuff out, the 24-hour news cycle, the political news cycle, whatever media means anymore. Right now we talk about legacy media and we talk about the independent media, and again, more befuddlement. I'll bleed it down for you. Right-wing architect Steve Bannon said it, and they are doing it. Flood the field with shit. We are being flooded with absolute shit. We are swimming in it. We are up to our necks in it. As the Sicilians say, fiuto. If it smells like shit, it's shit. And I'm not getting involved with it. So we got to watch that. It's really hard to pour. Quick prayer for, if you can hear the sirens in the background, quick prayer for whoever those are for. Anyway, Yeah, fiuto. Us Sicilians. If it smells like horse manure, it's horse manure, and I'm not getting involved with it. That's the end of the story there. So, what keeps tens of millions of people tuning in day after day, week after week, post after post? It's not the data. They're not hungry for data. I don't think people are engaging with social media because they want to learn stuff. You can do a quick swipe on your phone and you can learn stuff. You can check data. I can't tell you how many people send me these reels where I got to stop what I'm doing because it's Fiuto, man, and find the original that was doctored, or find the context, or go, just because they're dressed up nice doesn't mean they're telling you the truth. Even if they are telling themselves and telling you, their pitch is, I'm making the world a better place. So if I have to stretch the truth a little, I will, because that's what everybody else is doing. It's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about authenticity here. Characters appeal to us through their wants and needs. What are your wants and needs? Express those. This is why this is important to me. This is why I'm scared that my daughter, my father, my father-in-law, my friend up the street might lose XYZ. This is why I am upset. Start with that and see where that goes. That is much harder to dismiss. That is much harder to talk down and talk over. We need to be as smart and aware of how rhetoric is used, psychology, conflict, perspective, framing, and other high-level communication tools that are used to tell story. And again, that's going to be part of the creative communications. It's going to be part of my blog that I'm very, very committed to. And thank you for everybody who's engaging with my blog. It means the world to me, because these provocateurs and disruptors, they're a knot of these. This is how I define them: a knot of interesting semi-shadow characters hawking compelling stories to disenfranchise audiences without revealing their paymasters. I get in trouble for this. I got banned from Amazon for using terms like this, but I don't care. The Silval boys, that's what they do. I'll read it again. They are a knot of interesting. And when I say interesting, in the sense that their motives are interesting. We can learn from them. So that's why I study them. That's why I share information about them, because they're running the world right now. So we ought to understand where they're coming from. But a knot of interesting semi-shadow characters hawking compelling stories to disenfranchised audiences without revealing their paymasters. Now, what they're doing is, story is all about the gap. The gap is where I am and where I want to be, what I have and what I would really like to have, because that's where motivation comes in. To accomplish. Verbs. Actors are all about verbs. What the hell does this character want? He wants to make good. He wants the promotion. He wants to whatever. Say yes, you get the girl of his dreams, whatever it happens to be. They are very clear on all of this, and they will tell you in their compelling story where they're making things up in the gap. They're filling that gap with what they think people want to hear. I told you so. Told you so. Told you that was going to happen. I told you that's what that was about. Now do you see? Now do you see what I'm talking about? That's what I'm talking about. That's just more of that fiuto, man. That's just flooding the field with dung. Now do you see? Now do you see what those guys are up? Those guys, what are they up to? It creates more cognitive dissonance, makes it harder for us to make decisions, because again, they're so trained, they're so skilled in story. And a recent episode of Sinister Mysteries, we talked about the butterfly revolution. And so you have these philosophers, these thinkers, and then you have the front people, and then the front people have the politicians who can enact the changes that they need. And so it's like a matryoshka dolls, right? They're nested dolls of people, the people with the core ideas, the architects, the people they call the philosopher of the movement, those kinds of people. The revolutionary writers back down through history are very rarely the front people, because they're just too out there. They're just too out there. So I love everyone saying hello to each other in the chat room. Be a family. That is just awesome. So especially during the pandemic, right? There was all this QAnon stuff, and there were the rise of all these different. There's all these different names for them, but the Dark Enlightenment movement, and you can go back and check the videos on this stuff. I'm not going to name names tonight, but anyway, all that stuff. And I would look, and it was typically 3-act model. And here's how it works. So go back and watch one of these videos, and you'll see exactly what happens. They're going to hit you with hard history. Then they're going to distort the history as they enter act 2. Then they're going to bring in the enemy. They're going to bring in the other. They're going to bring in the big bad who's really, really making things terrible, and further distort history. And then when they have you so upset and so angry and feeling so helpless and overwhelmed, then they're going to make the ask. Give money, share this video, tell this story, join this organization, carry this sign, all of this different kind of stuff. Thank you, Ron. You will have this story in 3 weeks if you'd like to have it. I will assume, unless I hear otherwise, that these Every Day is a Story podcast will continue to air on ERD. I would love that on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So storytellers thrive in these gaps, the move from where we are to where we want to be. Remember that the gap is flooded with shit now. So going in there is a really, really big deal. We need to go in and we need to parse it out. When we watch these guys, it's a masterclass in character, in narrative, in distortion of the problem, in manipulation of the gap. And you can get lost in that. If you take someone else's gap, if you take someone else's wants and needs and adopt them, that is very tribal thinking. Well, I want what everybody else wants, you hear people say. That's probably not the case, because your unique story is unique. It's unique to you. You earned it. You've written every chapter, every page in your own book. So to give it away to someone else and go, no, I'll just be part of their story, that's problem. Right. Traded a walk-on part in a war for a lead role in a cage, as Pink Floyd says, right? So advice for creatives, maybe a reason to come back and keep checking out this show, maybe not. That's not really the point, but stories need changing. Creatives can't do that, and they can't do it with confidence if they're totally being told they don't have any value, that AI can replace you tomorrow, that there are no original stories anywhere. And what's really can be disheartening, the hardest thing is when I hear that from a fellow colleague, which I've heard, hey, dude, did you see, AI is sentient now, that's the biggest lie of all. And you're done, you're over. And there were no original stories anyway. So if AI just takes all the existing stories and marshes them together and puts out something else, who really gives a crap? That could be disheartening. And I'm a really, really tough guy. So, it's an inside, maybe not outside, don't challenge me to a fight. But anyway, so until we really see our work as valuable to the health and progress of society, that we have value, that we are going to be very valuable in the aftermath, as William says, we'll always be questioned. And if we question ourselves, why the hell am I doing this? I told you so. You say to yourself, another rejection letter. Another, I thought I had that client and then they ghosted me. Oh, it's taken 3 years for my play to get produced. That'll never be produced. They're all full of crap. That is not helpful. You stay in the process and believe and write your story every day. People say, God, you're so busy. There's so much going on, because something's always moving forward. I can always move something forward with so many things going on, and that's really valuable to me. So I'm not just sitting waiting for stuff to happen, that passive thing I talked about. People say, wow, dude, you're not making $1 million, so what the hell are you wasting your time for this? Grow up. And then I had a guy hired me. I was ghost writing his autobiography. Is out in the world, a very, very important person in the world. He said that to me at our first meeting over pizza. Well, what the hell? Like, you guys don't, and another guy who's actually going to be on the show in the future. Hey, you guys hardly make any money at this, as far as I can tell, which, what do you judge them? What do you know? Have you seen my tax returns? That's a problem. 35 years I've been doing this. professionally. So this is about the discipline of craft, and I'm going to wind this down and because we're over an hour already. But we need to be our own drivers. We need to be our own motivators, and we need to inspire. We need to inspire ourselves. So what can we do? What can we do? And this was the part that really was the meat and potatoes for people. We can read, we can research, we can practice. You see, if you follow me on social media, you see that I post these 10 12 books that I'm reading at any given time. Read, research, practice, the 10,000 hours, right? That is not a benchmark. Nothing magically happens when you've done your 10,000th hour doing what you're doing, but it's pretty cool. And I'm pushing over 30,000 hours now in my professional career. Don't binge watch TV passively. Get out the notebooks, the colored note cards, the graph paper, plot the scenes and arcs. I have character worksheets I can send you. I have plot things that I can send you. Write to me and I will send you stuff. I'd be happy to do that. Reverse engineer the best. That is the discipline of craft. People spend a lot of time and money going to school, especially graduate school. This is a muscle. We need to work it. We need mentors. We need guides. We need to get our work in front of people who are decision makers, who have the money to pay, because those opinions really matter in a very practical sense. But here's what you can do too in the meantime. And everybody can do this. And I encourage you to do this. Lori mentioned writing in a journal. Write about what you're feeling and experiencing. Write it down. Act it out. Put it on tape. Share it with the world, because someone needs to hear it. It's so much better to have something like that with someone talking honestly for 3 or 4 minutes on TikTok or Instagram is so much better than this shiny crap and all the AI crap where they hook you in with all doom and gloom. Here we are live from Mount Doom, and guess what? There's no Frodo, folks, so we're screwed. Sam has gone home to the Shire, and we're screwed. Don't waste your time with that. So here's what else you can do, and I'm going to do a whole show on this: networking, social media, practice pitches, make pitches. You use pitches in your life, or just stop and realize that you're constantly making pitches. Is a better way to put it. Join writing groups if that's what you're into. Get feedback. Learn how to get feedback. Toughen your skin if you're worried about that. Also, write reviews. Right? I've written over 400 book reviews, a smattering of music reviews. I've analyzed films for my blog. It just makes you better. And I can't tell you the opportunities, the people I've met, the opportunities I've gotten to write back cover blurbs, to write introductions for books, to co-write on projects. I highly recommend, as a creative, whatever your thing is, write reviews, write analysis of the things. It's wonderful. It's like the whetstone, to sharpen your tools. It's wonderful. Future episodes I'm going to do is work for hire, the art of showing up, networking, vision, voice. Be ready for the aftermath. That's what I feel like we're going to get in the ring, and we're going to train, and we're going to be ready for the aftermath. If you're into that, if you want to be witness to it, because I do promise you that the conversations with creatives are going to be really interesting. My goal is to shut the hell up, or to be the mechanism that these folks can shine, because anybody that I'm asking to be on this show, I believe in deeply. And so I get asked all the time, do you want to have so-and-so on your show, this one on your show, that one on your show? If I don't resonate with their work and who they are, I don't have them on the show. So I guarantee that. Joseph Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter is where your treasure lies. And that's why the banner for this show and this blog was the cave, which Tanya reminded me. I was really looking for an image. Said needs to be the cave. This current cave that we're in as a society, I'm just going to read you this little thing so I don't screw it up. This current cave we're in as a society, as the collective of humanity, is the deepest, darkest, most dangerous cave many of us have ever known. My children will certainly agree with that. Are they the darkest that the world has ever known? No, they're very similar, but it shouldn't be a competition, that kind of thing anyway. So this is my little speech, or my little rah-rah. Be brave. keep your vibrations high. I got to talk with Manson Mitchell for the 16th time on their radio show last weekend, and I really talked about that. Keep your vibration high. Light candles. Keep your candle lit, and that will allow you to light other candles. And I'll tell you what, you light enough candles and the darkness goes away. That's science. That is just science there. Be authentic, which is the hardest damn thing to do. I'm sure there's lots of people who have turned this off, who laugh at me and say, what a moron, what a child, look at, all stupid stuff around him and all. But be authentic. It's the best act. It's the best act of rebellion, I think, that you can do. And embrace complexity. Embrace complexity. Live in the gap where stories thrive, and please be ready for the aftermath, because it's coming. Act 3 is going to come, and we're going to have our climax, and we're going to have our resolution, and we're going to breathe for a little bit, and then we're going to start all over again. That's what I'm learning from these great and they are wonderful storytellers. The handful of astrologers that Tanya and I listen to. Be ready for the aftermath. Take the breather. Just keep going. As Rocky says to Apollo, just keep punching Apollo. Just keep punching Apollo. Community authenticity will be on the other side if we make it so. So every day is a story all its own. A new chapter, another chance. So what story are you telling? Dream it, write it, live it, and it will be so. I promise you, we are the architects of our own endings, but it takes a lot of showing up. It takes a lot of authenticity, suffering those slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. So be it. So I'm just going to type one thing here in the chat here before I let you go. And this is, so it's Joey for the radio audience. It's Joey Medea, storyteller, /blog, blogspot.com. So there it is. So, and I'll put it up on the screen as well here. Check it out. I'm putting, all of my material is there. A lot of my material, short stories, some poems, things like that. A lot of it, all the essays that I've written, dozens of essays on different kinds of topics, some of which I'm sharing here. Some of them had their first iteration on Stage 32. Some have won awards. It's been very cool, but I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Check that out if you want to. Thanks for spending this hour and 10 minutes with me tonight. Again, next week, George Uhash, Righteous Allegiance. But please, I love to mentor. I love to help. So if you know a creative, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're in college, maybe their career is stalling a little, they're beginning to give up hope, maybe you're one of those people, reach out to me. I would love to talk and see how I can help. There's lots and lots of stuff on the blog, so I'm sending people there. Hey, check out these 4 or 5 links. Get back to me if you have any questions, that kind of thing. So I think because it's so short, and in honor of my good buddy Knight, who's going to be on the show in August, here's the outro, and good night, and thank you all for being here. This is really, really important to me. You can probably tell that. And I'm going to do it if I'm only talking to myself, but I'm glad that I'm not. So take care, everybody. Have a great night.